Snow changes the meaning of sleep. In places where there are walls, insulation, and heat, sleep is a moment of surrender. The body relaxes, the mind drifts, and rest comes naturally. But in refugee camps covered in snow, sleep becomes something else entirely. It becomes a calculated risk. A fragile pause taken in an environment that never fully stops threatening the body. When snow settles over a camp, the ground hardens beneath the tents. What looks soft from a distance is frozen solid underneath. At night, that frozen ground draws warmth away from the body without interruption. It does not matter how tired someone is. It does not matter how still they try to remain. The cold works constantly. For refugees sleeping in these conditions, the first challenge is separation from the ground. Direct contact is dangerous. Heat is lost faster than it can be produced. So people build layers beneath themselves using whatever they can find. Cardboard collected from aid deliveries. Plastic sheets folded again and again. Old clothing, bags, scraps of fabric. None of these create warmth. They only slow how quickly it disappears. Inside a tent, the cold behaves differently than outdoors. Wind may be blocked, but moisture becomes a new enemy. Every breath releases warm air into a confined space. That warmth condenses on the thin walls of the tent, turning into droplets. As temperatures drop overnight, those droplets freeze. By morning, the inside of the tent can be coated in frost. Blankets absorb that moisture. Sleeping bags become heavy and damp. What should protect the body instead increases heat loss. Refugees learn this quickly. Wet insulation is worse than no insulation at all. So sleep is prepared for carefully. Clothing is not removed at night. It is added. Jackets stay zipped. Hats are pulled low over the ears. Scarves are wrapped around the face, leaving only small gaps for breathing. Socks are layered. Sometimes even shoes stay on, because removing them risks losing the little warmth that remains. The body is positioned with intention. People curl inward, drawing knees to the chest, reducing exposure. Arms are tucked close to the torso. Movement is minimized, not for comfort, but for efficiency. Every shift wastes energy. Every exposed surface invites cold. Still, the body cannot remain completely still. Circulation slows. Numbness spreads, especially in fingers and toes. Shivering begins as a natural response, a way to generate heat through muscle movement. But shivering also consumes energy, and energy is limited. Experienced refugees learn to notice when shivering changes. When it weakens. When it stops unexpectedly. These are signs the body is struggling to maintain temperature. Awareness becomes part of survival. In some tents, sleep is shared closely. Families press together, sharing body heat. Children are placed between adults, protected by layers of clothing and human contact. For parents, sleep becomes secondary. They remain half awake, listening, feeling for movement, checking that breathing remains steady. Fire, when available, changes the situation, but only slightly. A small flame can warm hands and feet, but inside a tent it is never safe. Fabric burns easily. Smoke accumulates quickly. Carbon monoxide has no smell and no warning. Heat is welcomed, but feared. Because of this, sleep rarely lasts long. People wake frequently. To adjust a blanket. To rub their hands together. To check that a flame has not grown too strong or gone out completely. These interruptions are exhausting, but necessary. Outside, snow absorbs sound. The camp becomes unnaturally quiet. Inside the tents, breathing and fabric movement become the only signs of life. Time loses its structure. Hours pass without clear distinction. Sleep, in these conditions, is not about rest. It is about lasting through the night. And every night survived in the snow is not an achievement to celebrate. It is simply the requirement to face the next one. As the night deepens, exhaustion begins to blur the edge between rest and danger. the body wants to let go, to sink into stillness. But in the snow, stillness can become a threat. Sleeping too deeply means losing awareness of the cold's progression. Losing awareness means losing control. Refugees learn to sleep lightly. Their rest is shallow, fragmented, interrupted by instinct rather than sound. A change in temperature. A shift in wind pressing against the tent. The subtle feeling of fabric brushing frozen ground. These small signals are enough to pull the mind back into alertness. Cold does not feel the same throughout the night. It intensifies in waves. In the early hours, it creeps in quietly. Later, it tightens. The ground grows harder. The air sharper. Breathing becomes more noticeable, each inhale bringing cold directly into the chest. Feet are often the first to suffer. Even layered socks lose effectiveness over time. Blood circulation slows, and numbness sets in. Toes feel distant, disconnected. People move them deliberately, testing sensation, making sure they are still responsive. Hands follow the same pattern. Fingers stiffen, losing fine movement. These checks happen repeatedly. They are not panic-driven. They are routine. Some refugees sit up rather than lie down. Sitting reduces contact with the frozen ground and helps maintain circulation. It is uncomfortable, but comfort is not the goal. Staying conscious enough to survive is. In tents where multiple people sleep, the arrangement shifts throughout the night. Someone changes position, causing a slight redistribution of warmth. Blankets are pulled tighter. Bodies move closer. These movements are slow and careful, designed to avoid exposing skin or breaking what little insulation exists. Children stir often. Their sleep is lighter. Their bodies react more quickly to cold. Parents respond immediately, adjusting layers, pulling fabric closer, using their own bodies as barriers against the freezing air. For them, sleep becomes a series of brief pauses between acts of protection. The mind also feels the cold. Thoughts slow. Focus narrows. The world shrinks to basic sensations: warmth, pressure, breath. Long-term worries fade temporarily, replaced by immediate physical needs. This narrowing of awareness is both a coping mechanism and a risk. In the coldest hours before dawn, fatigue is at its peak. Heat sources are weaker. Fuel is limited. Muscles ache from tension and lack of rest. This is when mistakes are most likely to happen. A blanket slips. A flame burns too low. Someone stops adjusting their position because exhaustion feels heavier than discomfort. Those who survive these conditions learn to recognize that moment. They force movement when the body resists. They wake others when something feels wrong. Community becomes an extension of awareness, a shared vigilance against the cold. Outside, snow remains unmoving. Inside, time feels suspended. Night stretches longer than it should. There is no clear signal that morning is approaching, only the hope that light will eventually return. When dawn finally arrives, it does not bring warmth. It brings visibility. The ability to assess what the night has taken and what remains. Frost clings to tent walls. Breath is still visible. Bodies move slowly, cautiously, testing stiffness and sensation. Another night has passed. Sleeping in the snow with almost nothing is not an act of bravery. It is an act of necessity. A repeated negotiation with an environment that never compromises. Each night demands attention, adaptation, and restraint. And when the sun rises, the body does not feel rested. It feels relieved, briefly, before preparing to do it all again. As winter stretches on, the nights begin to blend together. There is no clear line between one night and the next, only the repeated act of enduring them. Sleep no longer feels like a daily event. It feels like a skill that must be practiced carefully, refined through repetition. The body adapts, but only partially. It becomes more tolerant of discomfort, more familiar with the sensations of cold. But tolerance is not immunity. Each night still demands effort. Each night still takes something in return. Refugees learn to prepare for sleep long before darkness arrives. During the day, they observe the weather closely. Wind direction, cloud cover, the way snow behaves underfoot. These details offer clues about how cold the night might become. Preparation is quiet and methodical. Fuel is rationed. Blankets are rearranged. Layers beneath sleeping areas are reinforced if possible. Every small adjustment is made with the night ahead in mind. There is no room for improvisation once temperatures drop. When darkness returns, the camp settles into a familiar stillness. Snow reflects faint light, making the world feel suspended between visibility and obscurity. Inside the tents, bodies move carefully, conserving energy for what matters most. As sleep begins, the mind resists letting go. Memories surface. Thoughts drift toward places of warmth, of shelter, of rooms with walls and doors. But the cold interrupts these thoughts quickly, pulling attention back to the present moment. Awareness remains sharp, even in exhaustion. Refugees listen to their own breathing, to the movement of others nearby, to the subtle sounds of fabric shifting in the wind. Silence becomes something to monitor rather than enjoy. During the coldest moments, the body sends clear signals. Pain replaces numbness as circulation struggles to return. Muscles tighten involuntarily. Breathing feels heavier. These signals are not ignored. They trigger movement, adjustment, action. Some nights are harder than others. A sudden drop in temperature. Unexpected snowfall. Stronger wind than anticipated. On these nights, sleep becomes even lighter. People sit up. They speak quietly to one another. They remain awake longer, knowing that surrendering to fatigue carries risk. Community becomes most visible in these moments. Someone checks on a neighboring tent. A blanket is shared. Advice is exchanged in low voices. These actions are not dramatic. They are practical. Survival here depends on cooperation as much as endurance. As dawn approaches, the cold slowly loosens its grip. Not enough to bring comfort, but enough to signal that the most dangerous hours have passed. The body senses this shift before the eyes do. Morning light filters through snow-covered fabric. Frost remains. Breath is still visible. Movements are slow and deliberate. People test their limbs, restoring circulation gradually. Sleep ends not with energy, but with relief. Sleeping in the snow with almost nothing is not a single event. It is a cycle repeated night after night. A balance between rest and awareness. Between exhaustion and control. For refugees in these conditions, sleep is never passive. It is an active process, shaped by cold, guided by experience, and sustained by the refusal to give in completely. This is how sleep happens in the snow. Not in comfort. Not in safety. But in quiet persistence, against an environment that never stops demanding attention.